Namaskar and good evening everyone. I'm Anjali Bakaya and I'm a Kashmiri Hindu. I'm going to kick off straight into the introduction and background of Kashmir. These days it appears that Kashmir is the latest crusade of the Western world. Everyone wants to talk about it and certainly has a self-assured, albeit gently unfounded opinion about it. No wonder misinformation about Kashmir is rife. The narratives of Kashmir.
The sound can be higher.
The narratives of Kashmir we hear in Western media and even in the halls of our own Congress have imagined that Kashmir was totally normal before August 5 and have focused on alleged human rights abuses in the present. What is Kashmir? Kashmir is a Sanskrit word that originates from the great Indian sage Kashyap. The goddess of knowledge, also referred to as Saraswati, comes from the land of Kashmir. Many ancient scripts and also the ancient Indian school system, Gurukul, inducted students by first honoring and paying respect to Kashmir, the land of education and learning. Kashmir is located in the northernmost part of India in the world's greatest mountain belt of Himalayas. Its location on the Silk Route allowed high volume of trade from the Middle East, Central and Eastern European regions to the Far East, which is today's India, China, and Russia. Its strategic geographical location brought a healthy exchange of goods, language, cuisine, and culture. But what shapes today's Kashmir is testimony to some of the most tyrant Islamic invasions in the history of India. The native Kashmiris, also referred to as Kashmiri Hindus like myself, have been at the forefront of brutal violence, killings, conversions, rape, murder, forced exile, and cultural cleansing for over 700 years. In 1339 AD, Shah Mir was the first Muslim invader, followed by Timur and Sultan Sikandar, who forcefully converted natives to Islam, made a law to persecute the native Kashmiris, as well as organize a mass campaign to destroy our temples, books, education centers, and anything of native heritage and cultural significance. In 1506 AD, the Chucks that followed and invaded us bestowed us with one of the darkest ages in the history of Kashmir. They executed over 950 Kashmiri Hindus per day. During this rule, the Kashmiris started to flee their lands to southern parts of India. 1585 AD, during the Mughal rule of India, Jahangir Khan, the father of Shah Jahan, the man behind India's Taj Mahal, set upon exterminating all Hindu scholars because he believed they would slow down the process of conversion of Hindus into Islam. In 1753 AD, the Afghans invaded Kashmir and were notorious for their crimes, especially against the Hindu women of Kashmir. The beauty of Hindu women from Kashmir became such a burden on their families that families cut the women's noses to make them less attractive and thus save their honor from the Afghan men. Women were also sold in market, and men who bought them assumed the Kashmiri women's family name as a status symbol. My family, including our forefathers who were financial advisors under the Afghan rule, were personal victims of this tyranny. During the 1931 British colonization of India, Hindu-Muslim tensions surged across the country and a Muslim League was formed. The educated Kashmiri Hindus held high-rank positions in both government and private corporation. This was not pleasing to the Muslim League. As a result, Hindu private homes, properties were looted and Hindus were executed by officials for baseless reasons. July 13, 1931 became Black Day for Kashmiri Hindus. Eventually, the Dogra rulers or the Sikhs then came to power in Kashmir. In 1947, the Indian Independence Act divided British India into India and an Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Jammu and Kashmir's Maharaja Hari Singh chose to remain independent. However, armed tribesmen from Pakistan infiltrated and attacked the Indian state of Kashmir. Maharaja Hari Singh sought military aid from India and signed the Treaty of Accession to India in return on October 26, 1947. January 1948, India took the issue of Kashmir to the United Nations, accusing Pakistan of forcibly occupying parts of Kashmir. The UN suggested a plebiscite that would occur only and only on the condition that Pakistan would withdraw its forces and nationals from the state of Kashmir. But Pakistan failed to meet the UN conditions and guidelines. On January 26, 1950, Indian Constitution came into effect. Although it defined Jammu and Kashmir as an Indian state, Article 370 gave it special status. However, in November 1956, the state of Jammu and Kashmir adopted its own constitution but defined itself as an integral part of India. In 1962, China took over Aksai Chin after a war with India. Pakistan continued its insurgency into Kashmir and grew only stronger after East Pakistan, or as we know it today, Bangladesh, became liberated from Pakistan. Pakistan took control of northwestern region of Kashmir and also gifted a part of land to China. In 1990, armed civilians, along with militants, killed, raped, tortured Hindus from Kashmir in the name of freedom or azadi. The message was very clear. We had to either convert, flee, or die. B.K. Ganju was a Kashmiri Hindu and a young engineer. When local radical Islamic terrorists came to kill him, he hid inside a rice container in his attic. His own neighbors of years, a jihadi sympathizer Muslim whom Mr. Ganju and his family trusted, disclosed his location to the jihadis. He was shot mercilessly several times in front of his family and children. Later, these jihadis forced his wife and children to eat the blood-soaked rice. Aditya, a Kashmiri Hindu, and my husband witnessed the horrors of jihad firsthand during the winters of 1989-1990 in Srinagar as a 5-year-old boy. The little boy was so shocked by what he saw that his parents made him flee in the middle of the night with a subset of his family to safer grounds, penniless and homeless, later to unite with his parents in a refugee camp setting in Jammu. It was a single makeshift room shared with over 20 strangers. Through the following few days that unfolded, his mother suffered a miscarriage and his father passed away from trauma and depression-induced heart attack at an early age of about 40. 30 years have gone by. His family is still scared to safely return to their home in Kashmir, while it remains illegally occupied by a Kashmiri Muslim family. Several Hindu homes have been illegally occupied and many have been destroyed by jihadis. While the previous two stories are from Kashmir in 1989-1990, the next one I will talk about occurred in Kashmir after the 1990 exodus of the Kashmiri Hindus. Girija Tikku, a Kashmiri Hindu lab assistant. Girija Tikku, a Kashmiri Hindu lab assistant who had left the valley in 1990, was living in a refugee camp. She returned to Kashmir to collect her dues from the school she had previously worked at, only to be abducted by local radical Islamic terrorists. The jihadis blindfolded and gang raped her and later cut her into two halves. On a mechanical saw while she was still alive. When such incidents occurred and recurred, was everything in Kashmir before August 5th normal? Kashmiri Hindus, like myself, have tried to answer these questions for years, but the world does not listen to our truth. The ethnic cleansing of Hindus and other minorities from Kashmir and the terrorism in the valley, all of this has been whitewashed because it is inconvenient and does not suit the political agenda of Islamist separatist movement and their proxies. Not just lives and homes, but Hindu and other minorities' places of worship, centers of education and assembly have been destroyed and continue to be targeted by local radical Islamist terrorist groups in present-day Kashmir. How does this essentially define freedom or self-determination when natives were ethnically cleansed and displaced on the basis of their faith? Radical Islamist separatist groups have also formed Azad Kashmir or Free Kashmir on the western side, although majority of the people in the so-called Free Kashmir hold Pakistan passports. I say all this in order to give you context about Kashmir and the topic for our event today, and also to introduce our guest to you for the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest speaker today is an acclaimed filmmaker, screenwriter, author, and serves on the board of directors of Central Board of Film Certification. He is the son of Indian freedom fighters from the British and belongs to a highly respected family awarded by the President of India for its contribution to the Indian society. The 2019 blockbuster, The Tashkent Files, on Indian Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri's mysterious death, released in April and featured 5 national award-winning actors. His socio-political contribution through his game-changer movie, Buddha in a Traffic Jam, made him very popular, especially among the youth. His debut as an author with a critically acclaimed book, Urban Axles, became the fastest-selling book bestseller. Today, the term Urban Axles is used academically as well as politically by reputed political analysts, media, and the government of India. Our guest speaker is currently filming The Kashmir Files and has been traveling to Kashmir and across the world to uncover and record first-hand accounts of true yet horrific and untold stories of Kashmiri Hindus. Our guest tonight chooses to speak the truth and to tell these stories on decades of horrific human rights violations of Kashmiri Hindus in the Valley of Kashmir. Stories about Kashmiri Hindu genocide, about many Girijas and many Ganjus. Stories about many little 5-year-old Kashmiri Hindus like Aditya, who are victims of forceful exile and still living among us, silently, helplessly, and voicelessly. With great pleasure, please welcome Mr. Vivek Agnihotri on telling the untold and true story of Kashmir.